Hi everyone, and welcome to VEDA Day 13. So in yesterday's vlog every day in April, I had promised that I would share how my husband and I met and how we got married. I gave you a little teaser, and I guess there's really no way to start other than when I was 25, I had been laid off from a job, some reorganization going on at a bank that I worked at in the trade department. And I ended up losing my job along with our entire department at the same time. So I was between jobs, and a friend of mine was working in Ireland for 6 months, and his company was willing to fly his spouse out to visit while he was single, so I was the spouse. So I went and did that for a little while, then I came back. And that's a whole other story. We had lots of adventures, as you should when you're that age. You really should, because then you don't have regrets later. You don't have, oh, if I only did this when I was younger. I did lots of things, some of which I can never repeat on camera. So I returned back from Europe, and I was still employed and not really wanting to look for a job, but I knew I had to, obviously, because, I'm responsible. I've been on my own since I think I was 18, since I graduated from high school, or shortly thereafter. So I was back, I was looking for work, and I really didn't know what I was going to do for a living. I couldn't really find a niche. I think the internal conflict I had was that my parents wanted me to do one thing, and I wanted to do something else. My mother's biggest worry was always just get a degree or finish a degree. I don't care if it's in basket weaving. She literally said that to me once. I didn't get a degree in basket weaving, and that's also another story. So I was tempted to just try something different, and I did. I packed 2 suitcases. Left the entire content of my apartment with friends. My lease was month to month, so that wasn't an issue. And I took off for California. I got a one-way ticket. Even saying it now sounds like, oh my God, I was so stupid. But if it wasn't for those decisions at that time, I wouldn't be where I am today. Which I'm very, content about. At times even happy. Oh, that reminds me, happy. So I went out to California. I lived in Bell, which is a suburb of LA. For those of you who are in the area, you know it. It was in the news a few years ago for the corruption issues in the local government. I stuck out like a sore thumb. At the time I had really blonde hair, and I'm 5'11". Majority of the population there is Mexican Americans, and they just knew there was some white girl living in the neighborhood, and I looked odd. But while I was there, I had to find a way to earn a living, get some income, pay for my rent, that kind of thing. I didn't have a car, so I relied on public transportation, which is less than desirable in LA, at least it was at the time. So I found a way to earn money that relied on my voice. I'm just going to leave it at that. And through that, I met a guy who was quirky, a musician, eccentric, very lovable, very loving, but also had some issues that I could not overlook. So I decided not to pursue that situation, and I returned back to Connecticut. My sister was graduating from high school. I realized that I'm just not a West Coaster. I'm definitely an East Coast girl. And I just really missed my friends and my family and all of that. So I came back to Connecticut. But the guy that I met in LA, left some emergency contact numbers for me in case something happened to him. You could probably kind of fill in some of those gaps. Well, something did happen to him one day. I received a phone call from him saying that he's been shot and that he's in the hospital, and to call his brother who lives in Seattle. So I called his brother who lived in Seattle, who is now my husband. I just totally truncated that whole story, but we started chatting over the fact that Jonathan was in LA. I just told you my now brother-in-law's name. He was in LA, and then he checked himself out of the hospital, and then he was missing, and it would just, you can't make this shit up. You really can't. But that's why life sometimes is so interesting. So his brother, my now husband, flew to LA, tried to find him. He did find him. Tried to pack up his apartment so he can go back to their parents' house in Wisconsin. When he got to the apartment, it had artwork all on the walls. And I don't mean artwork on the walls framed. I mean walls painted with artwork, and a lot of my name mentioned on the walls. I know it's kind of getting creepy, but it's not, that's not it. So Paulie and I started chatting. He would call me and give me updates of what's going on with his brother, and I don't know, one thing led to another. We just started hitting it off, and he would check in with me, I would check in with him, and then he had a vacation coming up. He decided to come on and visit me in Connecticut. And then when he was here, he called out sick for a week to work. Oops. He didn't want to leave, and he was driving to the airport. He was supposed to be flying out of Boston, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from our house, or from where I live. Instead, he drove to Albany. He totally took the wrong, went the wrong way, and it just, I don't know, some things just kind of fell into place, and we got engaged 4 months later and married 5 months after that. That was it. He packed up all his stuff in Seattle and drove cross country to come and live with me in Connecticut. The day that we were getting married, his parents flew me out to Seattle to visit him for the holidays. It was Christmas, and I spent I think a week and a half there. From Christmas to New Year's, I went there to visit him on vacation. And we wanted to get married on New Year's Eve. We were going to elope. However, Seattle had a horrid amount of snow that fell, and they're not quite prepared for the snow the way we are on the East Coast. So the state shut down, so we couldn't get our marriage license. And in the state of Washington, at least at the time, your marriage license, once filed, is only active or can be validated by a marriage ceremony or a wedding ceremony 4 days after. So we weren't able to get our marriage license until the 30th of January, or the 31st. I think the 31st, because of all the shutdowns. And I was flying home on January 4th, and we got married by Justice of the Peace at 12:30 in the afternoon on January 4th. And I flew home 5 hours later. And my husband moved out here in March, so 3 months later he moved out. The morning of our wedding, no, I have no pictures of this day. I did get married in Doc Marten army boots, or steel toe Doc Martens, and black palazzo pants. Yeah, I'm not traditional. You should know that, but you probably already know that by now. So we went to Justice of the Peace. We had an appointment. We had witnesses. His friends were, a couple of his friends were witnesses. Neither side of our families knew. We decided to just do that all at once because my family is Jewish, his family is Lutheran, his father is a Lutheran minister, and he would have wanted to perform the ceremony, and I wouldn't have had the heart to say no to him. So we essentially pissed off everybody at the same time equally. You know, sometimes that's kind of the lesser of two evils. So that's what we did. So I was at his apartment with his cousin who he lived with at the time. And actually, no, Hannah wasn't there. She was out of town. Oh yeah, she was. That I feel bad. I felt badly about. I wish she had been there, but she was out of town because it was the holiday season. So a couple of his friends from work, and he worked at UPS in Seattle as well. I know it's very long-winded, but trust me, the funny part is coming up. So he's a diehard Green Bay Packer fan because he's from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It's about 40 miles south of Green Bay. He's always been a Green Bay fan. The Green Bay Packers were playing that morning. And the reason it was morning is because Seattle 3 hours earlier than, or 2 hours earlier in the Midwest. I actually don't know where they played, but I could probably look it up. So he went to his Packer club to watch the game before we had plans at 12:30 to go and get married. Kind of important, right? You'd think you kind of slice out some time to whatever. When he told people he was getting married at his Green Bay Packer club, they bought him shots. You can imagine what comes next. A drunk groom who comes home late. We had to reschedule by another, I think, half hour, an hour, because he was late, because everybody was buying him drinks. And at that game, at this club, they had a drawing for a all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl, which was in February, 3 or 4 weeks, or I think 5 weeks after that date. And he was there with a friend of his who was one of the witnesses at our wedding. And she said, "If I win, I'll take you." And he said, "If I win, I'll take you." And he won. And he took another girl to Hawaii 5 weeks after we got married. I know. I told you, you cannot make this up. So he did come home from. He was not himself. We should never have gotten married that day, but I was flying home, so we had to do it, and I'm glad we did. I mean, but in retrospect, it was such a bizarre day. So he comes home, and he feels like, oh, I really need to take a shower, get dressed. He goes in the shower, cuts himself everywhere, like horrible, because he had been drinking. You shouldn't wield sharp objects once you've had a few shots. Isn't that on the bottle somewhere? So he comes out of the shower, he's all cut up. He's got this stupid little toilet paper things on his face. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is who I'm marrying? It was so bizarre. He goes in to get dressed, and at the time, I thought it was just the fact that he was intoxicated, or was just had too much, and he was just happy and nervous all at the same time. He picked out the most god-awful outfit. It was horrible. I can't even describe it to you. But in life, that wasn't just the drinking. That's just his taste. Luckily, I kind of put his clothes together. Thank God for work. All he has to do is match brown to brown. It's so much easier. So we go to the justice of the peace, and he's all cut up from his. He's got lacerations on his face from getting cut in the shower, from shaving. He's already getting very emotional, and I'm like, what? It's just surreal. That's what it was. And the justice of the peace, it was a female justice of the peace, looks at me and she goes, "I'm going to give you 5 minutes to change your mind." And he goes, "Oh, good, I'm going to go run and use the bathroom." He comes back, very pale looking. I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "I zipped myself up accidentally in the bathroom." I'm like, wow, if I would only pay attention to signs. I didn't. I married him. I looked at him, and this is what went through my mind. Oh my God, if I don't marry him, who will? It was just, I don't know. It's not like I had a Mother Teresa moment, but I look at him and I'm like, oh, but he's just such a cute little puppy. I could fix him. So we've been married for the last 16 years. It's not all fabulous, spectacular, and bed of roses, because, you know, life's like that. There's all sorts of different things that happen. So we came back after the Justice of the Peace thing, and we got our license. We could not shake his friends because we wanted some alone time, you know. I was leaving to go home to Connecticut. And we just could not shake them, so we just left the room, like, I don't even care. So hopefully we turn up music loudly enough. Anyway, I flew home. He packed up his stuff and he drove out 3 months later. In the meantime, he did go to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, he lost his wedding band snorkeling with his friend. But his friend who went with him was snorkeling behind him and found his ring. So, I don't know. Signs? There's signs everywhere. So he still has his wedding band. We're still married. Ironically, all those weddings that we had gone to, except one, my sister's, have all ended up in divorce. And we've been to a lot of weddings in the last 17 years. So we spent $100 on the marriage license, and we're still married. And we've had friends who spent $30,000 plus on their weddings and didn't last more than a few years. I don't know if that's just a jinx thing or not, or, you know, you never know. I guess maybe this is my patience. I'm like maybe a little too patient at times, but so that's my story. That's my VEDA for today of how I met and married my goofy ass husband and the guy that I could not see myself with is not my brother-in-law. Or one of two. My husband is the youngest of 3 brothers. So there. How did you meet your spouse or significant other? Male, female, whichever, you know. I believe in equal opportunity because, you know, everybody deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves to be loved, and everybody deserves to know how to love. So that's VEDA for day 13. I'm cutting it close. It's minutes before, but I still made it. Let me know. What would you like me to talk about tomorrow? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I don't know if I can answer everything because there's some things that I think I should just keep private. But don't forget to thumbs up. I love thumbs up. The new structure, I'm still trying to figure out how to do a video about the pricing structure that changes for the monetizations for YouTube videos. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it so I'm not disclosing too much, but explaining effectively. So there you go. Hope you have a fabulous rest of the weekend. I'll see you tomorrow.